Namaskaram to everybody. I'm Srini Prabala. On behalf of Indian Fine Arts Academy DFW, we are really excited to welcome you all for our second episode of Virtual Vibes. Virtual Vibes is a premier show hosted by IFAA featuring young and young at heart. The key focus of this show is to provide a platform for the musicians to perform, share knowledge, and thereby motivate aspiring performers to learn and cherish the great classical art forms of Indian music and dance. Today's episode will feature wonderful performers from DFW: Bhargavi Sarangapani, Amaey Bellary, and Shreya Ashok. Sit back, relax, and enjoy another wonderful edition of Virtual Vibes. Going to you, Bhargavi, to kickstart the show.
Thank you, Srini Uncle. My name is Bhargavi Sarangapani, and I'm from Kapel, Texas. And I'm a Bharatnatyam dance student of Dr. Apurva Jayaraman, who is based in Chennai, India.
My name is Shreya Ashok, and I am a Carnatic vocal student of Srimati Neveli Ramalakshmi, who is based in the Dallas, Texas area.
Hello everyone, my name is Amaey Bellary, and I am a Mridangam student of Ganesha based in Dallas, Texas. So before we begin our discussion today, we would like to thank IFAA DFW for this amazing opportunity, as well as all of those viewing today's discussion. As some of you may know, Ganesh Chaturthi was last weekend, and so today we thought it may be fitting to discuss the portrayal of Lord Ganesha within Indian classical music and dance. So in Hinduism, Lord Ganesha is portrayed as the remover of all obstacles and bestows success and good fortune to his devotees. So in many Hindu households, you'll notice an idol of Ganesha somewhere in the entrance of the house, or like a puja mandir, like room.
And Ganesha is easy to recognize because he has an elephant's head, a round belly, several arms, and is often depicted as having something sweet to eat in his hand, which is commonly known as a modakam. And he's usually seen in a sitting position, laying down, or dancing.
So I want to start out just by talking about a few popular and traditional Ganesha pieces. And in a vocal Carnatic concert, Ganesha pieces are usually sung as the second piece following the Varnam as an invocation.
And like Shreya said, similar to a Carnatic vocal concert, pieces on Ganesha come towards the beginning of a Bharathnatyam margam, or an Indian classical repertoire as well. For example, in an Arangetram, which is a dance debut of a dancer, the orchestra would usually sing an invocation piece centered on Ganesha in the beginning, even before the dancer starts dancing. And as the dancer starts dancing, usually he or she would start out with a Pushpanjali, followed by a Ganesha Kautvam or Kriti. So Ganesha pieces are usually centered towards the beginning of the show.
Yeah, so like Bhargavi and Amaey said, Ganesha is the remover of obstacles, so the artist is able to take this opportunity to invoke the blessings of Lord Ganesha and kind of pray for a successful concert. And in addition to that, Ganesha Kritis also are a way for the artist to wake up the audience and help set the mood and the pace for the concert. A lot of times Varnams are used as a way for the artist to warm up themselves and the audience. And I think Ganesha Kritis as well, usually having a very fast-paced cadence set in usually bright ragams, are able to help the artist warm up as well as wake up the audience. So we can take Vatapi Ganapathim, for example, in Ragam Hamsadwani. It's a very popular piece by Sri Muthuswami Dikshita. So if I were to sing this in a concert, I might do something like show a short sketch of Hamsadwani Ragam, maybe even less than a minute, but that way the audience might immediately know, if I'm singing Hamsadwani as my second piece, oh, maybe the artist is going to sing Vatapi Ganapathim, because it is such a popular and well-known song. So I'm just going to do a short demo of a little bit of Manodharma that I might do for an invocation Ganesha piece, as well as sing the Charanam of Vatapi Ganapathim. Rana, Anana, Pura kumbha sambhava munivara prapujitam trikona madhyagatam Pura kumbha sambhava munivara prapujitam trikona madhyagatam Murari Pramokadupasitam Muladharakshetrastitam Parvadichatvari Vagatmakam Pranavam Swarupavakraturdam Niradaram Nidilajadrakhandam Nijava Makara Vridritekshudandam Karambuja Pashavicha Puram Kalusha Viduram Utagaram Haradi Guru Guhatoshita Bimbam Hamsadvani Bhushita Herambam Gapani Zari Gari Suni Bani Hamsadvani Bhushita Herambam Gari Bagani Basani Gari Suni Bani Hamsadvani Bhu Gabani Bagabani Zani Bani Zari Zani Zari Zani Zani Bani Bagabani Hamsadvani Bhushita Herambam Gapani Nini Pani Zari Zani Zari Gari Zani Nirari Gari Zani 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 Zari Zani Bani Zari Gari Zani Gari Zani Pari Zani Pagasari Gapani Hamsadvani Bhushita Herambam Vada Pigana Patim Bhaje So that's just an example of how the artist might set up the song with a bit of raga alapana, as well as take the song at a very fast-paced speed and follow it up with some kalpana swarams at the end. So I just did second speed and I just did a few swarams just to show the artist, kind of give a teaser, if you will, of what Manodharma is to follow in the concert. And yeah, again, just wake the audience up and help warm up the artist. And one thing I also want to point out is the place I chose to do swarams was Hamsadvani Bhushita Herambam, which is the raga mudra that Dikshitar is showing in the song. So if you pick a place in the song that is significant, has a significant meaning or some kind of significance like that, it can help elevate your manodharma and really makes it a lot more meaningful. So the next piece that I want to discuss is another one that is specifically relevant to Ganesh Chaturthi, and it's another Dikshitar composition, which is Siddhi Vinayakam in Ragam Shanmukha Priya. So I'll just sing the Charnam and then I will describe the lines where Dikshitar is specifically referencing Ganesh Chaturthi. Bhadrapadamasa Chaturtyam Brahmanadi Pujitam Pashankushadharam Chatra Chamara Parivijitam Bhadrapadamasa Chaturtyam Brahmanadi Pujitam Pashankushadharam Chatra Chamara Parivijitam रौद्रभावरहितं दशजनहृदयविरचितं रौहिणीयनुजाचितं इहानवाजितं रौहिणीयनुजाचितं इहानवाजितं अत्रिराजसुतात्मजम् अनन्तगुरुगुहाग्रजं भद्रपदपदाम्बुजं भासमानचतुर्भुजं श्रीदेविनायकं तनिष्ठं चिन्तयाम्यहं प्रसीदगणनायकं विशिष्टार्थदायकं वरं सिद्धिविनायकं तनिष्ठम् So here in the Charanam, Dikshitar says, Bhadra Padamasa Chaturdyam Brahmanadi Pujitam. So he's describing the Bhadra Padamasa, or a month around the end of August and the beginning of September. So the fourth day of the month is where Brahmanas and even other gods worship Ganesha on the day Lord Ganesha was born, also known as Ganesh Chaturthi. And what's interesting about this piece specifically is it's a little bit more uncommon in Dikshitar Kritis to find Dikshitar taking on a storytelling angle in the meaning of his Kritis, where he kind of describes the Ganesh Vratam and all the different things revolving around Ganesh Chaturthi. Something like that, that storytelling angle is something you would find more in Tyagaraja Kritis. So I thought that was an interesting part of this Kriti as well. So now that I've talked a little bit about the meaning of that, I want to turn it over to Bhargavi and see how she might take the meaning of this song and demonstrate that in Bharthanatyam.
Yes, so thank you, Shreya. You sang those lines very beautifully, and I also loved how you sang Vatapi. I wish I could just keep listening to you. So these lines can be demonstrated in Bharatanatyam as well, or any Indian classical dance form. And there are certain hastas that can be used to signify the month of August, as well as the fourth day of that month. And since this month and time is when Ganesha Chaturthi is celebrated, or when Ganesha was born, I will also be showing how an example puja, Chaturthi puja, is done, where the idol is decorated and prayed to, and then placed in the water. And this signifies the Ganapati Visarjan, or the Ganesha Visarjan, that's done in many areas in India. And in the end, I will show how Lord Ganesha inevitably rises from that water body and comes into the hearts of his devotees. Shreya sang the Charanam portion, but I will just be starting from the Bhadrapada Masa Chaturtyam part, and then move on to the end of the song, where I'll show this storytelling aspect. And I'm using a recording from Srimati Sudha Raghunathan.
गुरुगुहाग्रजं अद्रिराजसुतात्मजं अनन्तगुरुगुहाग्रजं भद्रप्रदबलाभुजं भासमानचतुर्भुजं भद्रप्रदबलाभुजं भासमानचतुर्भुजं श्रीदेविनायकं मनीषं चिन्तयाम्यहं प्रसीदगणनायकं विशिष्टार्थदायकं परं श्रीदेविनायकं मनीषं
So this was just an example of how these lines can be demonstrated.
Great demos, both Bhargavi and Shreya. I really enjoyed both of those. Shreya, I wanted to ask you, if you could elaborate a little bit more on the concept of monodharm and what it encompasses. I'm asking this because as a accompanying artist and someone who hasn't been classically trained in particularly the vocal aspect of Carnatic music, I've just been solely doing it based on listening and listening. Could you talk a bit more about what goes through your mind when doing these different types of manodharm?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think manodharma, the term as a whole, refers to any kind of spontaneous improvisation done. So generally, when we talk about manodharma, though, we are referring to specific formal things that are done in a concert. For example, a raga alapana, kalpana swarams, or naraval, or even aspects of RTP. So if you take for Vatapi Ganapatam, I sang a short sketch at the beginning and I did some brief kalpana swarams. That's all I think what we think of when we say the term manodharma. But I think it can actually be any element of an artist's creativity. So for example, if I were to take a sangati and improvise it a little bit and change it to what I thought sounded good, or some of my own kalpane, that would also be considered manodharma because it is improvisation on the part of the artist. And I think manodharma specifically is very interesting in a concert because of the way it lets you interact with the accompanying artist. So I kind of want to turn it back around to you and ask how you might react to manodharma by an instrumentalist or a singer in a concert.
Yeah, I'd say probably a lot of it is it's a reactive style. So if I have never heard a kriti before that's being sung on stage or played by an instrumentalist, I would have to do a lot of just kind of moving on the fly and being very reactive and observant, listening a lot. And I think a lot of it has to do with communicating with whoever the main artist is and making sure that I'm aware of really what's going on, and also so that I don't interrupt or disrupt the flow of all the artists on stage.
Yeah, I know one thing that I can speak to is earlier on when I was performing, when I just started performing, interacting with the violinist and the mridangist was definitely something that I didn't consider as much. It was more about, okay, I need to do my kalpana swaram and I need to, make sure I come to talam and everything like that. But I think what's actually more interesting about a concert is if I know I'm planning to sing, a certain kodve or a calculation, being able to look at the mridangist and give them a hint so that they will also be able to follow. And I think that kind of elevates the whole idea of, all the manodharma that you're doing, if all the artists on stage are kind of able to take part and know what's going on and kind of collaborate in that way. Yeah, so with that, I want to turn it back over to Bhargavi. I had talked about a few Ganesha pieces that I might sing as an invocation piece, some popular pieces, but I'm interested to know specifically for dance, are there any Ganesha pieces that are popular for dance or anything that you have danced to that specifically highlights Ganesha?
That's a great question, Shreya. So there are a lot of kritis on Ganesha that a lot of dancers dance to, such as Ananda Nartana Ganapati or Shri Vignarajan Bhaje, which are both composed by Uttakarda Venkata Suppayar. And there are also many more like Dikshitar kritis as well. And Nartana Ganapati or dancing Ganapati is commonly shown in Indian classical dance as a figure who bestows both knowledge and success, and who's also a patron of the arts and the sciences. And for example, in the song Mahaganapatim, Dikshitar says, Mahakavya Nataka Dipriyam, which emphasizes how Ganesha exalts in both dance and literature, which can come in the form of poems or dramas. And he's also portrayed as a comic dancer, and dancers demonstrate his physical attributes, which being his round belly. I'm just gonna go back a bit. His round belly, the modakam that he holds in his hand, the pasha and the ankusha that he holds behind him as well, and his mushika vahana, which is shown like this in Bharatnatyam, which he rides on, and his That's his like divine vehicle. So as I perform a demonstration, there are certain poses that I'll do to portray these attributes, such as Ganesha's trunk lifted upward, like this, or his tusk, his one tusk, or his moving ears. And this position is commonly shown in most Ganesha dance pieces, as it echoes a graceful bend of both the dancer and the Lord. And in most temple carvings and sculptures as well, Nartana Ganapati is shown dancing and is shaped like an S, which further emphasizes this point. And so to show this, I will be demonstrating Ananda Nartana Ganapati in Ragam Nate, set to Adi Talam. And the composer Uttakada Venkata Subbaya describes how Lord Ganesha is praised by the Ganas, or the hordes of sages and his devotees and kings. And his praises are sung best by the Gandharvas and the Charanas, which is present in the line in the Charanam that says Gandharva Charana Varayudhina Manam. And as a whole, the composer brings out a sense of what is called Gambiram, or that majesticness. And in this piece, I'll show Ganesha either dancing or walking with the gait of an elephant, which also brings out that Gambiram factor as well. And throughout the piece, there are also different nade patterns and jati patterns as well, intertwined with swadams. So I've chosen several choreography aspects to represent the style in which it's said. And after my demonstration, I thought it would be interesting, Amaey, to describe the differences and your experience for accompanying for a Carnatic vocal concert versus a Bharatnatyam recital. So I will now demonstrate Ananda Nartana Ganapati.
गणपतिं भावये आनन्द नर्तन गणपतिं भावये सदानन्द नर्तन गणपतिं भावये परमानन्द नर्तन गणपतिं भावये चिदाकार मूलाधार ओंकार गजवदनं परमं परमानन्द नर्तन गणपतिं भावये चिदाकार मूलाधार ओंकार गजवदनं परमं परमानन्द नर्तन गणपतिं भावये चिदाकार मूलाधार ओंकार गजवदनं परमं sari sa tari dhana ta janu ta kita ta nangu ta ka pa ma ga ma ri sa sari sa tari dhana ta janu ta kita ta nangu ta ka pa ma ga ma ri sa sari sa tari dhana ta janu ta kita ta nangu ta ka pa ma ga ma ri sa sari sa ta ka dhara ta janu ta kita ta nangu ta ka dinu ta dinu ta di ta dai
Thank you, Bhargavi, for that really amazing demo once again. So you had asked me about the differences in my experience accompanying for a Carnatic music concert versus a classical dance. So I'll just touch on a few of the contrasts, and there's a lot. It's actually a pretty significant difference there. But I could go on about how different the two styles of playing mridangam are there. But typically speaking, when I would accompany a Carnatic artist on stage, there's a huge emphasis there placed on listening to what the main artist is singing, and as I had mentioned earlier, playing with a reactive style. So the emphasis there is very much focused on how I can complement whatever piece is being presented. So I have to be very attentive there so I don't disrupt the flow of pace of the main artist. So for example, if I played for a piece like Mahaganapatham, it's sung at a generally fast pace. So it's typical for me as a percussionist to play a fast-paced sarvalagu, which is basically a continuous demonstration of rhythm. So I am responsible for not slowing up the talam too much and also not speeding up and not slowing down. So typically you'll hear mridangists play patterns like for just adi talam, takadimi, takajana, takadimi, takajana. So that continuous demonstration of rhythm is what really is important for a piece like that, like Mahaganapatham. So additionally, I have to be aware of different samas in the song, or different areas where I have to be more attentive. For example, Shreya had demonstrated Siddhi Vinayakam, and so there's one line that starts, it's in Rupakatalam, so Takita Prasiddha Gananayakam, right? So that's not on the sum. It starts one akshara, one beat before the talam. So I have to know as a mridangist, I have to know the song as well. I can't just be focused on maintaining talam there. So I have to be cognizant of how I'm complementing, and I have to listen to whatever the artist is singing. Another thing Shreya demoed was Hamsa Dhwani Bhushita in Vatapi Ganapatim. So that happens to be, I believe, at the midpoint of Aditalam. So she took the swaram, the Kalpana swarams, at that midpoint rather than at the beginning of Aditalam. So things like that is where I have to watch out and be very attentive. Additionally, I have to be aware of what ragas are being presented. So that's, I think, sometimes that idea in younger mridangam students isn't very clear to them. Sometimes it's, at least for me at the beginning when I first started learning and first started playing, I didn't really understand Carnatic music too well, and I didn't know what moods, what ragas would elicit like what mood. So, for example, if you take a ragam like Nilambari, it's very slow and like soft. So, as a mridangist, I can't play something very kind of in your face and upbeat, I guess. I can't play that for something like Nilambari because all the kritis in that raga are fairly like fairly peaceful and kind of melodious in that way. So I can't be disrupting the song because then that just, it sounds odd to the listener. On the other hand, if you take dance, classical dance, there's a huge emphasis on the talam and the jatis and especially the nritta of the dancer. So all those rhythmic aspects are what's important to portray while accompanying on mridangam. So that's main highlight. I have to memorize sequences of jatis and demonstrate that on stage while also still complementing what the dancer is trying to evoke, what emotions or abhinaya. So those are kind of two different things. I have to observe the dancer and react to what they're doing. Whereas on the other hand, for like a padam in dance, there's a more of an emphasis on abhinaya. So I wouldn't be necessarily playing something too rhythmically advanced or intricate. There's more of a kind of easygoing, follow the talam, and more of an aspect of following what the singer in the orchestra is doing. So yeah, those are some of the main contrasts. So Shreya, earlier you had mentioned typical fast-paced invocation pieces on Lord Ganesha. Could you talk about any slower-paced kritis on Ganesha, and how is that typically done in a Carnatic music concert?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like you mentioned, I had said that most Ganesha kritis tend to be fast-paced. As they are at the beginning of a concert, you'll find that most of the first few pieces will be faster paced, but there are some examples of slower paced kritis, and a particularly good example of this by Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar is Karikalabamukam in Ragam Saveri, set to Rendikale Rupakatalam. So here, just from hearing the ragam and the talam of that piece, you can already tell that it is a pretty stark contrast from something like Vatapi Ganapatim or Mahaganapatim, where the ragam is, very upbeat, lively, and generally it's like Durita Kalam kritis in those ragams. But with Saveri, you tend to think of, it's a heavy ragam sung as a main piece, or in slower kritis, which I think it is the case. And also, Rendikale Rupakatalam is also a pretty good giveaway that the song is going to be much slower paced, and generally either kind of a very slow, mellow song or something that you would sing as a main piece. So yes, Karikalabamukam is generally sung as a main piece, and that's where I would place it in a concert. I would not sing this as an invocation, even though it is a Ganesha kriti. So with it being a main piece, that would come with me doing probably a pretty substantial raga alapana depending on the length of the concert, anywhere between maybe 5 to upwards of 15 minutes, and then allowing for the violinist to follow that alapana, and then me singing the song at a very slow pace, as well as doing some Nadaval, Kalpanaswaram, and allowing for a tani if I do choose to make this my main piece. So I just want to sing a little bit of the song and kind of demonstrate some of the manodharma I might do. So yeah, I will do that now and then talk about my choices for where I do Nadaval and some of the meaning of those lines. Muladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam Muladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam Modaka Hastam Muni Janat Kamalastam Modaka Hastam Muni Janat Kamalastam Palachandram Sumukam Karuna Sandram Pashankushadharam Padmakaram Swadaram Nilagrivakumaram Nifadashobhakaram Palita Bhaktam Dhiram Varam 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 Karikalamukam. So that was the Chadnam, but the line I would choose to do Naraval is the first 2 lines of the Chadnam. So Mooladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam. So basically what Dikshitar is saying is he's describing Lord Ganesha as the god of your first chakra, or your Mooladhara chakra. So Lord Ganesha is sitting in a four-petaled lotus. And then Modaka Hastam, Munijana Hrid Kamalastam. And here he's describing how Lord Ganesha is dwelling in the lotus-like hearts of those sages and brahmanas that worship him. So I'm just going to demonstrate a little bit of Nadaval here. Mooladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam Mooladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam Mooladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam Mooladhara Chaturdala So that was just a pretty abridged version of what I might do in a concert. So what I want to point out specifically here is I had described the meaning of Mooladhara, and when you're picking a line for Naraval and Swaram, I said this earlier with the Vatapi Ganapatim line that I picked for Kalpana Swaram, but it's important to pick a line that has a significant meaning, especially for Naraval, because you're singing that line again and again, and you're saying the words again and again. And here for the Kalpana Swaram aspect, because the line has these words that I'm able to use, I was able to take some swarams at Mooladhara, some swarams ending at Chaturdala, and some at Pankaja Madhyastam. So when picking a place in your song, if you can find something that has an interesting meaning or an interesting structure that lends itself to doing these things with your Manodharma and with your swarams, that adds to, you know, the effect as a whole. Because there I'm not doing, you know, the same Saveri swarams for one song as I would do for another song in Saveri. It's very much specifically tailored for this song. And again, this will also allow for some more interaction with the violinist as they try to kind of mirror what you're doing on the spot, and the mridangist, as you take these lines in like the middle of the talam, they'll have to react to that on the spot. So I described the meaning of the line, so I'm curious to know how, Bhargavi, you might be able to demonstrate this in classical dance through abhinaya.
Of course. So, Shreya, that was beautifully sung, and I really like how you talked about how choosing a certain line for singing the Naraval is really, really important, because in dance as well, it's important to choose or to dance to certain lines that have meaning, so a story can be built off of it, or abhinaya can be built off of it. And usually when a Naraval is sung, abhinaya is probably the most apt for that, because with those repeated lines, you can show repeated hastas and mudras that have to depict a certain meaning. And you can also incorporate swarams and jatis into it, but usually abhinaya is most commonly done for repeated lines in a Naraval. And before I answer your question, Amaey, I really liked how you talked about how accompanying for certain aspects of dance is really important. And I like how you also pointed out that accompanying for nritta with the Mridangam is different for or just is different from playing the mridangam for a padam, which is much more lighter. So both of those aspects can be incorporated in dance as well. So there's several hastas and movements that can be shown to depict this meaning. And to show this, I will be demonstrating the same lines that Shreya has sung from Karikala. And I will be specifically showing the two Charanam lines, which is Mula Dara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam, and then Modaka Hastam Muni Janahrit Kalamastam, which Shreya beautifully described previously, showing how Ganesha is the essence of the first Muladhara chakra and is placed on a lotus, and how his devotees and the sages that pray to him also have lotus-like hearts. So Shreya, if you don't mind just singing those few lines a bit so I can show the abhinaya for that. Great, thank you. Oh, 1 second, sorry.
Sure.
Okay, I'll just be sitting or positioned like this. Okay.
Muladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam Modaka Hastam Muni Janahrit Kamalasam Muladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastam Modaka Hastam Muni Janahrit Kamalasam.
Thank you, Shreya. So this is just an example of how these Charanam lines can be depicted using Bharatnatyam or Indian classical dance.
So with that, I think that's pretty much all the topics that we wanted to talk about today. And I just want to say, going off of Bhargavi's demo, something that I found really interesting about this, exploring this particular song and looking at the meanings of all the songs and seeing how you portrayed that in dance is something I know I don't do very much. Is when I'm singing, I tend to not think about the meaning of songs and just, think about the music and the tune and feeling the ragam. But I think seeing how you're able to put abhinaya to that and show a story through that has been a really interesting experience for me to kind of examine the meaning a little bit more. And I know I've learned a lot from that. So thank you for all your demos. And of course to Amaey, I've sung with you a lot before, but really being able to examine how a mridangist is able to react and how you play differently for different aspects of a concert was really interesting to listen to. So thank you to both of you for the opportunity to learn, and thank you to IFA Dallas for giving us this opportunity to be able to share what we know and also learn a lot more from each other. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I really enjoyed this discussion. So at this point, I'm just going to turn it over to Nani Uncle to finish out.
And before that, I would just like to thank you guys so much as well, and also IFAA. And it was such a great opportunity to learn from all of you and collaborate. And I definitely agree with what Shreya said. It's important to examine the meaning. And a lot of the times, improvisation can be to show the meaning as well. So, sorry.
Thank you all for joining the second Virtual Vibes brought to you by Indian Fine Arts Academy of DFW. On behalf of all the artists featured today, we appreciate your encouraging comments on Facebook that I have been observing, and thank you all for joining live. And I just wanted to say that during this pandemic, all of us learned to reinvent ourselves as artists and also as rasikas. This is one of the finest examples of a discussion by the performing artists trained outside United States, outside India. And today's artists are all those that we saw growing up in front of us in the field and growing up in Dallas. And I personally have been to all their arangetrams, Shreya's vocal arangetram, Amaey's Mridangam arangetram, as well as Bhagi's Bharthnatyam recital too. So I'm really proud of all of you, definitely. As you may have figured out, the panelists today are all dancers and musicians. Bhargavi is a Bharatanatyam dancer, Shreya is a Carnatic vocalist, Amaey is a Mridangam player. Virtual Vibes features some of the performing artists and those who are trained outside India, like I said, an opportunity for many of us to learn how they understand and imbibe these classical arts. We have these wonderful performing arts who gave us insights into how they interpret their learning of the arts. This is not a platform to just come and perform, not just come and sing or come and dance, but a platform to interact with each other and share with us their knowledge. So this is an opportunity for many of the teachers to see how they can approach teaching Indian classical arts for the kids outside India. It's also a learning experience for parents. Many of the parents, there's an ocean of learning in our classical arts if they can provide the right environment for these kids. It doesn't end with a Saveri composition in the Neraval or something like that. It has a lot more, and Shreya can sing a lot more, and so can Bhagi and Amaey too. They can do a whole concerts. That's why we specially chose them to feature them today. We would love to see more such musicians show their passion and inspire many more to pursue this passion of Indian classical arts. There are already a lot of you out there who have been reaching us and for future participation in the virtual vibes. And we are getting a lot of requests from many of our IFA followers to take part in virtual vibes. And we are excited to bring our next session end of September. And please stay tuned to our announcements with another set of artists. Please like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and become members of our vast classical music and dance community. And I would like to remind all our members that Parambaryam, brought to you by Indian Fine Arts Academy in collaboration with GCMA, the Global Carnatic Music Association, a series of 14 concerts by well-known artists are still available to you for another week. And this is available exclusively to our members, and it's available on Vimeo. Just a reminder. So if you're a non-member, please sign up for membership, and I would strongly encourage you to become members of Indian Fine Arts Academy. Thank you all for tuning in today, and look forward to all your support for Indian Fine Arts Academy in all our future events. Thank you. Goodbye. Okay, so it's done. I stopped the live session.
Very good job, guys. Thoroughly enjoyed all the program. Every element came out very well. I really liked Karikalaba Mukam. That is my favorite piece. Actually, incidentally, Anjali sang in the Ganesha special.
Yeah, the last week Anjali and Aditya performed that. Yeah, so that's right. So I was thinking of the two as you're singing, Shreya. And I should say, Shreya, you did an awesome job with that, especially the explaining part of it. And I like that aspect, when you're interacting with each other, when you're singing and Bhargavi dancing there. That's what is probably a most difficult thing for anyone to do in a virtual session like this.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to see that. So that's what happened today, and I'm really happy about it.
And about Amaey, I really liked what you covered, because a lot of times our target audience is youngsters. I don't know how many of them are joining, but you brought in that perspective, like what you faced when you started, how do you work on it. That is very important. I think it's important that we all share what we know and help us each other grow, right?
Yeah, just to correct that, Srinivas, it's not just youngsters. I think even for many of the seasoned performers to understand how the Mridangist is accompanying, right?
Yeah.
So.
No, that's very true, Amaey, because I have performed with Mridangists where I have played Neelambari or sung, but they were they thought it was a vibrant song. Let's say if it was Madhava Mama Mama,
Yeah, it's a very
which maybe I did not want as much vibrance, but they would jump at it. Also, if it's a smaller concert and you pick slower items, they wouldn't know because they want to showcase their talent.
right, right.
That especially happens when they are younger, right? I mean, as they grow, they will learn. It's all part of learning. And one thing I wanted to tell was Bhargavi, beautiful dances. I also like the piece where you both collaborated. We got some new ideas there for next time. Because last time we were trying to keep the performers little away from each other. But here you both collaborated. That was super.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I thank everyone for giving me this opportunity, and it was really, really fun to like work with you, Shreya and Amaey. So yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
We will add you to the core group, okay? Every time we will do it. You're welcome to join in. Once you are in, you are
You
in.
can contribute to the next kind of discussion on what kind of ideas that you can give them to, right? So, because we are feeding off you in terms of doing the next session. So we would definitely like you. You probably during the session you learn something and then you want to you wanted to do something that is probably not done here. Probably you can give some ideas like that. And next time if we come out some topics or whatever. And keep doing what you do best and keep performing, and we keep following you. Srini uncle and I love listening to you and then watching you perform all the time. And I'm really proud to say that I've been to all your 3 Arangetrams. That's what I really meant that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we'll add you to the core group, and then if you see some place where you can jump in, please do. We will do a lot of such events. We are figuring out. If you have some ideas, like Nani Uncle always says, please feel free to share that. Because it's not that it's not we directing, it's a forum for you. So. Or others, if you have other friends who should be participating or who could contribute, please share them.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Nani.
opportunity.
Good job.
Great job, all of you were making. Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.